it. So, back to it.
Glenn! Oh man, the barb is broken.
What's up everybody, Demon back, and welcome to a brand new video. This one is going to be doing the Walking Dead Season 7 Episode 2, The Well Breakdown. This is a super dense episode, a lot to talk about here, a lot more than last week's episode. Don't get me wrong, that one was a better episode, but this one has a lot more to break down. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And of course, spoiler warning. Now, really quick, before we begin, I want to mention the fact that we are now seeing multiple different types of governments being implemented into the show, and I really love it. Multiple different types of rules coming into the show throughout that have been seen throughout history. Now, this is present in the form of the monarchy, which King Ezekiel, the character we're introduced to this episode, is running. The democracy Rick Grimes is running, and a lot of people give Rick crap and say it's a Rick-tatorship, he doesn't listen to his people, he's all this stuff. No, it is a democracy, alright? Yes, Rick's call may be final. What he says may be the thing that goes, but you can't shortchange the guy, because if you think back to Season 3, he had that speech where he says, when I said it wasn't a democracy anymore, I was wrong. We can stay and fight, or we can leave and hide, when they were dealing with the governor. And now in Season 6, he had that great speech up there when, during, I believe the episode was Not Tomorrow Yet, and he says, it's not up to me, I want to fight the saviors, but I'll talk to the people at home. Anyone here have any objections? Popular vote wins. That is what he said. So, well, that was paraphrasing what he said. So it is a democracy, but people shortchange him. And, that kind of goes with our government, too, with the U.S. government. The people can put in their vote, can put in their say, but at the end of the day, it's for, presidential elections. It's the Electoral College who chooses. Or, you may vote on something, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get passed. So it's that kind of thing. Now, we are going to be seeing a new form of government appearing in the show later on with the form of Maggie at the hilltop, but I don't want to get into that until it happens, so we're going to move on. The final form of government, and I hate to do this because that was the only real picture I could find that represented a dictatorship better than any other, was Negan's dictatorship, because Negan is a tyrant. He is a bad guy, alright? But I really like him, so it sucks that, I'm comparing him to Hitler here, but honestly, there is a similarity between the two. Think about it. They have a massive rule. Both of them led through fear. Just there's quite a bit of similarities, which is really bad because I love Negan, and I don't want to compare him to one of the worst people in history, so... Anyways, it's just interesting because both of them run the same type of government, essentially. Now, moving into the actual episode. Coming off of last week's amazing episode, very brutal, very intense, we needed a slow episode, and that is exactly what we got, and I think it works great. A lot of people don't like this episode. I think it's an amazing episode. So, we start out with... Carol being transported to the kingdom, and really, in the first couple minutes of this episode, there's a ton to talk about, so let's get right into it. Number one, you can see here Morgan is marking his way back on a tree, marking his path to get from the kingdom to Alexandria. Now, that's pretty significant. So here we have walkers eating another horse. Yes, horses on The Walking Dead just have a really, really hard time. Sucks to be a horse. And also, am I the only one who caught the significance here of a walker getting its face sliced off? Yeah, you kill walkers by stabbing them in the head, shooting them in the head, this kind of thing. But I just found it interesting that, its face just got completely wiped away, and I'll let Negan do the talking here because I don't think I need to explain that one too much. Another thing, I feel like I'm probably the only person who's going to wind up drawing this connection, but Carol hallucinating human beings, walkers as human beings, really reminds me of the story arc that we had with Daniel Salazar towards the mid-season finale of Fear the Walking Dead Season 2. He was going insane, and he started seeing the walkers as victims of people he had killed in the past. Now, no, Carol has not killed all these people in the past, but I do find it to be an interesting similarity between the two characters. Does this mean Carol's going to wind up going even more insane? No. I think by the end of the episode, she's pretty much cleared up. Just the same way as when Daniel returns in Fear the Walking Dead, he'll be pretty much cleared up. Now, moving on, once again, we got Morgan carving more things into different objects, marking his way back. Once again, this is very significant because this is how he found his way to Rick from Terminus. Moving on, some similarities in the imagery in this episode. If you guys were wondering what that city in the distance is, it's supposed to be Washington, D.C., but we do know they still filmed the show in Georgia, so I'm assuming that would have to be the Georgia city skyline. I mean, I could be wrong, but who knows. Moving on, got some more symbolism here with the rabbit's foot as Morgan's good luck charm. He is having a lack of faith in this episode, and that is something we're going to talk about a little bit later, but he's having a lack of faith in this episode. He's kind of lost his way, and the rabbit's foot represented when he found his way, so the fact that he still has it with him and it still means a lot to him means that he's not completely gone. He's not too far gone. He still is Morgan, but I find it interesting that we have the symbol of the start of his humanity again with Eastman, and now we have him questioning his humanity and questioning what the path for life is. Also, some more symbolism here with the keys as a wind chime here. We see this multiple times throughout the episode, mostly with Carol. In fact, pretty much only with Carol. We see these through the episode, probably showing how Carol feels locked down in this place. Keys represent the way out. They represent you can unlock a door. You can open a new path. And that is exactly what this episode is for Carol, because at the current moment she's in, she is locked in this position of, I cannot kill, I'm too dangerous, I have to be away from everything. And by the end of the episode, she will unlock that, or actually Ezekiel will unlock that emotional trauma, sort of, and begin to open a new path for her. Okay, so now we just have Morgan and Carol heading on to the kingdom. We have this great line, Ezekiel has a tiger. Ezekiel's an awesome character. Moving into the opening credits, we have some new title cards here. This is Ezekiel meeting Carol, some really great comic imagery, and wow, Shiva looks freaking amazing. It is just insane how well they got the tiger. I don't understand why anyone would shortchange the CG at all. Because yeah, it's not a real tiger. It is completely CG. Well, sort of. It has a practical head, but it is a CG tiger. Similar to the way that, and I know this has been controversial on my channel, Shin Gojira had practical effects but entirely CG Godzilla. So they had miniature explosions and giant massive sets that the human characters would run around through that were completely just rubble. Lots of practical effects mixed in with the CG effects, and that is something we see a lot through The Walking Dead. So I thought that was a pretty cool comparison that I could draw there. Here is a really great scene, and I want you guys to pay attention to Ezekiel's face here, because what the scene is comes into play later. It is both of them putting on an act, and one of them not seeing that the other one is an act, pretty much. So what is happening is Ezekiel is introducing himself to Carol, and Carol is playing right into it. She is introducing herself to him, but both of them are playing characters. Ezekiel is playing King Ezekiel, not the real person. Carol is playing Happy Time Carol, not the real person. And I just found that interesting how, as we find out later in the episode, Ezekiel saw through it all along, and I just thought that was cool. Now we have this line, drink from the well, replenish the well. This could mean quite a bit of things, alright? Drink from the well, replenish the well. We'll talk about what I think that's a comparison to in a second, right after we talk about probably the greatest character of The Walking Dead so far. I believe his name is Jerry. He is just this big old happy guy he is Ezekiel's buddy pretty much. He's a great character, making puns here. He's hilarious. I think he's a great addition. Based off what we saw last episode, we needed a funny guy. We needed someone to bring up the mood. Because, yeah, Negan's a funny guy, but he did just kill Glenn, so there's that. Now, the well could refer to Glenn. It could refer to the time he was stuck in a well. Do I think this is what it's drawing a comparison to? No, I do not. I think it is drawing a comparison to Martinez and the governor. If you guys remember back in Season 4, when Martinez joined up with the governor's group, he had the line where he says, you need to contribute, everyone needs to pull their weight, if you don't, you're gone. Drink from the well, replenish the well. Contribute or take from us and contribute. Martinez says, no dead weight. And that is pretty much exactly what was going on here with the well, the symbolism of the well. And also, one other thing, I just find it hilarious how Jerry's character is essentially Ryan Higa. So, if you guys don't know who this guy is, you haven't been on YouTube very long. He is just an absolutely hilarious guy who is really popular in his videos for always making puns, and Jerry is just a happy guy making puns, and they're both funny guys. So I don't know. I just found that kind of funny. Moving on to some more actual real significance here. So we have Ezekiel offering Carol apples, which I find interesting because of the Garden of Eden, where, of course, Eve ate the forbidden fruit, the apple, and most of us know how that Bible story plays out, so I don't really need to explain it more. But I found that interesting. And then we have this line. There's something of a contradiction. Now, contradiction is something that Ezekiel is built upon, as we'll talk about later, so keep that in the back of your mind. And then he says here, sweet fruit surrounded by bitter. Now, this could mean many things. It could just mean literally pomegranates are a sweet fruit surrounded by bitter. But I think it's referring to Carol. Deep down, she is a sweet person. We know that. She is a good person, as seen from the start of Season 1, Season 2, whenever she has moments of humanity, Season 3, a lot during Season 4, tons of times in Season 5, sprinkled throughout Season 6, most of the time in Season 6 it was an act, and then at the very end of Season 7, at the very end of this episode of Season 7, she is a good person. But she is surrounded by bitter. She is surrounded by death. She is surrounded by doing terrible things. And that is what's weighing her down. So I feel the pomegranate is a representation of Carol. And a lot of people have been drawing it to Greek mythology. But because I'm a comic reader, and a lot of people are saying they're comparing Ezekiel to Hades, I'm going to say no, that's not the case. Ezekiel's a really good guy. Hades was not necessarily that great of a guy. Now we have Carol confronting Morgan about, just she's not happy with the kingdom. And then we have some people mobilizing, as we'll see what they're doing here in a minute. I just found it kind of interesting. This outside view of the kingdom from the wall looks very reminiscent of Woodbury to me. I don't know if anyone else felt the same way, but that's how I felt. We'll talk about Woodbury here in a minute. So now we have this really great thing. So the kingdom is actually feeding their pigs walkers. And we'll find out why here in a little bit. There's a lot of, I know, I'm doing this a lot. I'm saying, hey, we'll find out in a little bit. Sorry about that, but everything comes full circle. Everything gets a return, just like the wolf said. And like I said, this is getting a return. Talking about Woodbury again. Here's the governor again, because I feel like these two actors look so much alike, it's ridiculous. But, moving on. Now we have a walker attack, and, Benjamin doesn't handle it well. He winds up stabbing it in the shoulder instead of the head. Ezekiel winds up coming and killing the thing. I find more symbolism here. Like I said, this episode is super dense. So the symbolism comes with his sword and the secretness of it. All right. So think about it. On the outside, it is just a cane. On the outside, it is a good, a happy thing. But on the inside, it is a dangerous weapon when it needs to be. So I find that even his sword is a representation of Carol, because this whole episode is about Carol, whether she's in the scene or not. Now we have Ezekiel shouting random nonsense that the walkers maybe free you from this place. It's just really weird stuff. And then we have the governor. I'm just going to refer to him as the governor from now on. We have the kingdom governor saying only halfway free when Ezekiel says full, festive, faithful, and free. Our first hint that these people are working for the saviors. Now we have just some more stuff here, just some more chitter chatter pretty much. Your skills with the staff, how did you acquire the skills? Morgan replies, it was a cheesemaker. This is a throwback to not only just the literal Eastman thing where, yes, Eastman was a cheesemaker, or at least he wanted to be with Tabitha, but also this is a throwback to the conversation Morgan and Rick had in Season 6, Episode 1, when Rick asks, was it a friend before or after? Morgan says after. He says, all this stuff, and then they find out it was a cheesemaker. Also, the school buses. Important because the kingdom is a school in the comic. Now, is it going to be a school in the show? I don't know, but it's a school in the comic, and I'm thinking that the school buses are a sign that, yes, in the show it is as well. Now we have this kind of weird transition with Ezekiel where he gives Morgan some really weird, I don't really know how to word it, but he basically tells Morgan that Benjamin needs help training with a new weapon because he sucks with everything else, and he wants Morgan to teach him with the staff. Now, he gives him this: pessimist looks down and hits his head, optimist looks up, loses his footing, realist looks forward, adjusts his path. This could mean many things. The pessimist looking down could represent Carol and how she was kind of pessimistic a lot during last season, and now it has led her here, where she pretty much is at an all-time low, suffering 2 bullet wounds, and now just is on the recovery. The optimist looks up, loses his footing. This could represent Rick getting a whole bunch of confidence booster right before Negan shows up and kills the other optimist, Glenn. I don't really think we should really be drawing all this much into it, but I don't know. It's got to be something. And then the realist looks forward to just his path. This could be referring to maybe Ezekiel, because Ezekiel is playing the optimist, but deep down he knows that things aren't 100% how they seem to be, so he's kind of playing both sides here, equaling him out to be the realist. This could be Morgan, but Morgan is also more of an optimist who is trying to never kill, but he understands that if he has to, he has to, as seen in last season finale. So I really don't know who the realist would be, which is why I'm not sure about if the other ones are accurate or not. Moving on. He asks Morgan to train Benjamin with the staff, and he says, young Benjamin will become an important member of my court. I need him to live. And I think Benjamin's going to be a casualty of all-out war based off that. There has never been a time in Walking Dead history when someone's been introduced in a happy way like that and gotten away with it. I need him to live. He's dead.